Welcome back. Let's have a look at what's happening to US markets at the moment. They started off in the reds. They're still in the red, although less so. The S&P down 1/3%. The Dow Jones also slightly weaker than the Nasdaq, down 0.4% at the moment. And across the Atlantic, it wasn't a great performance there. The FTSE 100 down 0.5%. CAC and the DAX also in the red tonight. We closed in the green. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen tomorrow because it could be the Rand hedges doing brilliantly and SA Inc. falling in a complete heap. Gerbrand Smit from NEFG Fund Managers and Chris Gilmour from Absa Stock Brokers are with me in studio tonight. Right, there's a question on DBX World. And the question is, I've been looking to get rid of this a while, but I've been waiting for the Rand to weaken. Returns have been weak, taking income and costs into account. How to call the best time? Lol, impossible question. Okay, so it is a fairly impossible question, but now with a downgrade in the bag, would it be silly to get rid of your DBX World?
Absolutely ridiculous. Be crazy. Yeah, it'd be madness. Lol. You know, see, in all seriousness, because I mean, if you've got what 4,000 stocks in there. So you've got a fantastic dispersion. And look, almost every...
Is that the problem, maybe, that you have too much of a dispersion?
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, it would be better if you had a more focused thing, like many of the global equity portfolios that a lot of the high net worth fund managers are offering these days. But nevertheless, if the Rand is going to plummet the way we suspect it may, if we get no political resolution in the near future, then you want to be in these stocks, absolutely.
Yeah. Gerbrand, do you have a different take to Chris?
No, look, we had a different take in January on the currency, but that all changed in a week. It's a quick game, and we're part of that. And I would not sell my offshore holdings at the moment. No.
Okay. So, all right. What about Liberty Holdings? The dividend yield is attractive at current levels, but will it recover from its recent setbacks? And then also taking into account, as your comments, that life insurers might come under quite a bit of pressure with this downgrade.
Now look, they are cheap. They've been cheap for quite some time, and I think they got their strategy wrong over the last year or two. They've certainly been struggling with business on the embedded value side and on new business. I don't know if a guy like Discovery is actually the affluent market, which Liberty used to have over many years. Are they capturing some of their business? I'm not sure exactly. We are holders of Discovery at the moment and not of Liberty. But yeah, I'm a bit scared that they. I'll first like to see that they actually turn around the business, because they certainly are struggling. The share price is reflecting what's happening in the company at the moment. I'd first like to see some green shoots before I pile in there.
But this seems to happen consistently with Liberty, is that they take 2 steps forward and 1 back, or 1 step forward and 2 back. I mean, you know, at the time of the financial crisis, they came out of it worse off than anyone else because of part of their policies. Stanlib just doesn't seem to be doing particularly well.
That's right.
I mean,
look, the last set of results were pretty horrendous, but I suspect some of the smart money out there is saying that this probably is the bottom. But having said that, and you know, following on from what Gerbrand was saying about what may well happen to the life assurers in the wake of the downgrade, that may negate some of the possible upside that we might otherwise have been expecting from them.
Okay, MTN or Vodacom, particularly now? Chris?
We think the negative news on MTN is probably as worse as it can get. At 120, it still offers a lot of value. If you look at long-term wise, there's still 240 million users and customers of MTN in all their countries combined, etc. You need a bit of a better oil price for Nigeria to actually come right again. And I think they've changed their management all over where they had some troubles and weakness. And if you take a OK business and you change management to OK management, you normally sit with a good investment. So we're happy holders at current levels.
And Vodacom?
Yeah, I think it's probably fully priced. Look, it's not the greatest businesses as it used to be 10 years back. It's mature businesses now. It's in maturity phase, so you'll see more competition, price competition. You see a bit of growth on data, but you also see prices coming down substantially. So probably fairly priced rates now.
Chris, different thoughts?
If we're looking at them purely on a comparable basis in terms of their telecoms ability, Vodacom, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think MTN's got a major problem in Nigeria, because that's very much a play in the oil price. Nigeria needs somewhere between $70 and $80 a barrel to really start making any appreciable difference to where it currently is. And the hijacking of oil in the Niger Delta is just making things awful for Nigeria. That economy is struggling big time, and that's where they get the bulk of their earnings from. Having said that, and Gerbrand alluded to it, the new management, Rob Schutter, Stefan van Coller, and Ralph Mopita, all from financial services, the likelihood is that we're going to see a change in direction from MTN, away from being predominantly a telecoms business into something that more closely resembles a fintech operation. That being the case, I think there could be some exciting potential for MTN, but we have to get greater clarity on that, I think.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have any graphs at the moment because I think our internet has been knocked out by the tremor that has either been only felt in our building or in the Greater Johannesburg region. I'm not entirely sure, but there was a question before the internet went down asking about Steinhoff. And the question is there any reason for the fact that there's been no movement in Steinhoff despite a depreciating rand?
Yeah, look, they partly South African retailer, and I think that's probably the reason why they didn't go up. If it was only a UK retailer, yes, they probably should have gone up. But remember, some of the local operations are also on the front of negative consumers, etc., going forward. So, yeah, probably fairly so. I've actually looked at it exactly today with the same thought of it, and the only logical explanation is that they got Pepco here, they got other businesses here, which is also going to struggle with the heavy blow that Zuma gave the consumers on the local front.
And what about their debt? I mean, is it problematic for Steinhoff to be sort of, a very South African-focused company with lots of offshore debt, or is their debt maybe not quite as substantial? No,
look, I think most of these companies, when they do a transaction in Europe, they do it in euro currency, their debt as well. So they match their liabilities with their underlying businesses. So I don't think that's a problem with any of the South African companies. 99% of them actually match their liabilities with the specific currency which they trade in from a trading or revenue point of view from that business. So I don't think that's a problem on their side.
I think what also is we're seeing the kind of the backwash from the failure of the Steinhoff and Shoprite deal to go ahead. Yeah. Steinhoff, had they managed to get all their pesky African assets into one holding and concentrate and get the minds of European and American investors onto Steinhoff purely from a global perspective, then I think they would have done far better. And that I think was the plan. Unfortunately, they haven't been allowed to do it, and therefore it's languishing a bit.
I saw a comment today, sort of a grouping of central banks have, a lot of them have actually sold out completely of their euro holdings, so they're talking about cash, and bought sterling. So they feel that there's a good chance that sterling is going to revive in the year ahead. Would that stand in good stead for Steinhoff, or because they have so much business in Europe with Conforama, and I guess Eastern Europe with Pepco, would that just be negated?
Two would just pretty much negate each other, I would have thought. And they've got big operations in the UK, but equally large, if not larger, in Europe, I would have thought.
So we are in an internet desert as we speak. We have no graphs, no internet, no questions. So maybe what we could do is an exercise in how to put a portfolio together tomorrow or tonight. What stocks would you be looking at? What would you be changing in your portfolios, given the fact that we've been downgraded to junk status by Standard & Poor's? So we need to wait for Moody's and Fitch, I guess, for the comprehensive package of rejection. But in the meantime, what do we do? Chris?
Well, I think really what you're talking about here is risk and how you mitigate risk. That's really what we're talking about. And you make the cogent point that maybe we have to wait for a couple of days just to see what happens with other ratings agencies and what the outlook's going to be. And what, by the way, the response is going to be from government and from the ANC. We've seen Treasury, and it's a fairly, it's a kind of response you'd expect from them. But having said that, to mitigate your risk, obviously you want to have a far higher proportion of assets offshore. And if you haven't got them already, the rand is still relatively strong. It's taken a 10% whack in less than a week. And but it's still it's still a lot stronger than it was even a year or so ago. So take the view. You've got to sit down and take the view. If it's going to go appreciably weaker, then you should have a much higher proportion of your assets in the offshore space. And that being the case, you've got a whole wide world to choose from.
Sure, I mean, it does, and luckily you're actually in a state now where that wide world is much more easily available to you than it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago. Gerbrand, is there anything that you'd be actively selling in the wake of this?
Yeah, I don't think if anything's changed over your valuation principles on why you purchase the stock yourself. If the cost of capital in your calculations go up and it changes your intrinsic value of the specific share, and you can still get out. I'll probably get out of some of them.
Can you mention any names?
Yeah, look, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow morning and the rest of the week, and then make some of those calculations and decide do we keep some of the stocks or don't. And retailers will come up in your local side. Banks will come up on the local side. If they haven't been hammered too severely, you'll probably start lightening on some of them and change some of that exposure again to the Sasol's of the world and some of the other shares, the British American Tobaccos and the Raynets that's at huge discounts, etc.
And you don't think that's, because one thing I think that we probably learned from last year is that we did rush into rand hedges, took money offshore at the wrong time, and also bought stocks simply for their rand hedge quality as opposed to their intrinsic quality. And I, for example, got stuck in Richmond for a long time, which went nowhere. So
I'm not saying we're buying companies at 40 Ps on the offshore market. I think you still need to look at the valuations and intrinsic value on what they trade at. But there are companies that, I mean, Raynet is a nice example. They offshore. They trade at a 40% discount to British American Tobacco. From an intrinsic value point of play, that's something you would look at in the specific market where we are at the moment.
One of them. So getting to stock picks, Chris, good old faithful, I suppose now
Surprise,
more than
surprise.
ever.
Yes.
DBX US, though.
Yes. I'm still staying with US, mainly because I still have faith that we are going to get the required fiscal changes in the US that's going to allow the American economy to extend its upwards momentum. And that being the case, I think we've probably exhausted all the bit about where the rand's going to go. I don't believe we're necessarily going to get the correct response from ANC and from the government, and therefore I do believe the rand is going to take further pain.
Okay. And Gerbrand, you're buying Zambezi Press. That's it's related to Northam. Why?
Yeah. Look, it's their BE transaction. I think it was originally about a year and a half back, 4 billion rand injection into the balance sheet of Northam to pull off some of the newer assets, etc. They're well positioned. The only risk there is that Northam needs to keep their doors open for business, which we think...
Pretty big risk.
Well, we think they're the best situated of all the platinum players in South Africa. So if anyone is going to survive, Northam is going to survive. They've got the best pipeline of new projects coming online. So we're happy to take that little bit of a risk there. You're getting paid prime plus 3.5, so you're getting paid 14% compounded for another 8 years. I think you should get it at about 52 at the moment, but I see it's already trading at a premium. So you can go and do the calculation on your own, do it on a spreadsheet, go and look. I think it listed at 36 Rand a share or something. Put 14% compounded with prime on there. And you'll see that's supposed to be 52 Rand a share. But they're already paying a premium for it. Yeah,
clearly a trick we missed. Gerbrand, Chris, thanks very much for joining us this evening.
Pleasure.
Good luck out there in the market tomorrow. Gerbrand Smit is from NEFG Fund Managers, and Chris Gilmour is from Absa Stock Brokers, and we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30.